Welcome to Fortress of Faith with Tom Wallace, calling North America to repentance and revival.
Welcome back to the Corner of Truth and Courage. You're listening to Fortress of Faith. This is Tom Wallace. I want to draw our attention to Palestine, to the Middle East. Today, there's been things that have been fluttering around about countries saying we're now going to recognize Palestine as a state. Some of these nations are like Canada, England, and so on. What's the game? What are they trying to get from this? What's the purpose of trying to support Palestine? What is this idea of a two-state solution? Where did it come from? Will it work? What is the United Nations? Well, what are they doing? What's going on here? So let's kind of break this down and try to bring some common sense to this, okay? All right, so recently we've had, nations like Canada, of all people, threatening America, really, saying, hey, if you don't negotiate with us on this trade war that we've got with you, we're going to put our weight behind this movement in the United Nations to recognize Palestine as a state. Of course, we know the tariff war is going on, and probably as this is going to get aired, maybe some things have been resolved. I don't know. Hopefully it will. They're trying to use different things as leverage because they know America will not go for Palestine being recognized as a state. Well, why not? What's the problem? Why do we not want them as a state? Why would America stand in the way? Well, there's a simple reason. America has taken the position for a long time that they don't want a unilateral push by other nations to recognize Palestine as a state without Israel being involved. Israel is going to be affected more than anyone else if Palestine gets recognized officially as a state, and it's going to affect Israel. And so if this is going to happen, America insists you're not going to throw this on them without them having a big part in the negotiations. And so the thing is that no matter how many states get involved in this and say, hey, we recognize if we come to the General Assembly, they need a 75% vote in order to pass, okay? Well, apparently they have it now. As of March 2025, 147 of the 193 UN member states, which is just over 75%, are now saying, we recognize Palestine as a sovereign state. Now, Palestine has been a non-member observer state since 2012. There was a resolution done back in 2012 where they invited Palestine in, not as a full member, but as a non-member, an observer state. And, so in other words, they could participate in what's going on in the UN, but they have no voting rights, no power, and they have no membership privileges. And so now I've been saying, if you've been listening to my broadcast for any period of time, we've discussed this on a number of occasions. And it's really one of the sticking points of what's going on in the Middle East. Will there be peace in the Middle East? Well, some suggest, yes, we can have peace if we force the Israelis to accept Palestine as a state. And so everyone would think that Israel's against this. No, they're not actually. On 5 occasions, they have told the Palestinians, okay, yeah, let's do it. We'll give you land for peace. And they've offered them generous. This is how the Palestinians were given Gaza. The Israelis kicked 12, 15, 16, 18 years ago, the Israelis, they had built hospitals, electricity plants, water treatment plants, and all the infrastructure, put in roads, hospitals, homes, everything else. And they literally forced the Israelis out. The only Israeli government said, listen, hopefully we can have peace if we give them this. We'll give them Gaza, the whole thing. And it was a pain for Israel to do it. There was a lot of people that said, hey, these are our homes. We built these places. What do you mean? But they did. This is what Israel did. And so Israel's gone to many, 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 many lengths over the years to say, okay, Palestine, go ahead, have your state. Let these be your borders. But let's do it, though, with peace. If you're going to do that, we're going to have peace. And that was the agreement. But each time Palestine at the very end say no. They never will. And they will never recognize. They make it very clear. We will always say no because we will never recognize Israel as a right to stay. Because Israel says, listen, you've been denying us our state, the reality of that. But if we recognize you as a state, you also have to recognize us as a state. That's the sticking point. That's the part that really the Arabs cannot abide by. Now, you need to know there's a lot of false narratives going on. Number one, Palestine, the whole idea of Palestine. There's no historic state of Palestine. Never has been, but there has been a historic state of Israel for centuries in that land. The Israelis in the Old Testament, King David and so on, they have ruled there until the Romans destroyed them and dispersed them to scatter them into the world. And so in 70 AD, the Israeli state came to an end. Well, what's the idea of Palestine? Well, they want us to believe it's the Philistines. Now, there is a biblical term of Palestine in the Bible, and it was named for an enclave. It was actually outside of Israel. It was up in Lebanon, called Palestine. It wasn't even in Gaza, okay? And these were Philistines. Well, who are the Philistines? These were sea people, warriors that fought with Israel for many years. But here's the key point. They're not Arabs. The Philistines never were Arabs. And the Philistines were destroyed off the face of the earth when the Assyrians marched their armies through and destroyed parts of northern Israel. They destroyed the Philistines. After that, you never hear of them again until they were reborn with a name by the Romans. The Romans tried to call it Palestine when they had, dispersed all the Jews out of there, and they brought other nations in, and they wanted to rename it and destroy the roots of that area, but that never really took. Then the British, of course, knowing their history of the Romans, picked up on that. And in the Balfour Agreement back in after World War I, that's where we get the first play on the idea of Palestine. That's when the area started being called Palestine. Now, if you're a Christian and you love God and you love your Bible and stuff there, do God a favor. Do yourself a favor. Stop calling that area Palestine. Don't call Israel Palestine. God never called it Palestine. It was always called Israel. It was for the Jews. It was God's promise to Abraham that his seed, Isaac, would be the ones who would inherit the land. Now, the problem is the Arabs don't like that, and so they rewrote the Bible by bringing us the Quran and make it that the pledge that was given to Abraham went to his son Ishmael, not Isaac. And so the Arabs view from their Quran that the land belongs to the Arabs, the Ishmaelites, the descendants of Ishmael are the Arabs, and that the Jews have rewritten the Bible have corrupted the Bible to make it look like the promise went to Isaac when it should have gone to Ishmael. He was the firstborn. So this is why they fight over that land. And the whole idea of a two-state solution is faulty. It will never work. As long as Islam is a part of the Arabs' way of life, and I don't think you can sever it. I just don't know if there's any practical way of, yanking Islam out of the picture. As long as Islam is part of the picture, the Arabs will never, ever, ever accept the Jews. They're the prophet killers. They hate them. They've been raised with hate because of the Quran. Now, let me throw another wrinkle into this. Let's suppose that the United Nations does recognize, it does throw that in there. They do throw that on the world and say, we have decided that the state of Palestine should exist, and we're going to call it as such. Well, the problem is America has veto rights, and America will veto that. But let's say they didn't. Let's say we just say, okay, Palestine, you can be a state. Here's my question. What will the United Nations do with UNRWA? UNRWA is the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. It is they deal with the refugees of Palestine. That's all they deal with. They don't deal with any other refugees. UNICEF deals with all the other refugees in the world. Do you know what UNRWA was funded by in 2023? We don't have 2024, 2025 budget yet. But we do have, they always release 2 years later. $770 million that the United Nations paid, that the governments of the world have funded to be given to UNRWA to look after 6 million refugees. 6 million. That's what we're talking about. The Palestinians, every one of them, every last one of the Palestinians that are over there that we want to call a state, they only have a population of 6 million. The United Nations paid $770 million each year. That's the budget now. We can expect it to go higher this year, next year. And what are we dealing with? Starvation for the people. $770 million divided between $6 million, that's over $100 million a person. Hello? I don't know. Is this getting through? Do you realize what I'm talking about? These people receive over $100 million per person, not family. We're talking about every man, every woman, every boy, every girl, every infant. They receive over $100 million each year. Now, how would you like to be in that kind of situation? To look after these people as refugees. These people are not getting the money. How are these people starving? How are these people living in such terrible conditions? Because of corruption of Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. Folks, let's make a mistake. Let's try that. And let's cut off all their money. Okay, you're a state. Okay, now pull up your own bootstraps. We've been funding you for years and years and years with ridiculous amounts of money. And it's a broken system. It's a crooked system. And it needs to stop. Puts a whole new light on things, doesn't it? That's why we have Fortress of Faith on your radio. Thank you for your support so we can continue. God bless you. Join us again tomorrow at the Corner of Truth and Courage. God bless you.